And now it's better for black to develop his bishop to e6. This is because suppose if white captured this bishop, simply rook takes e6, and now white can go for f4, which attacks this knight, but simply knight to d7. And here you cannot go for f5. This is because suppose if you go to f5, which attacks this rook, but simply g takes f5, and after white recaptures it, simply queen takes f5. And now you can see that in the next move black will bring his queen to g6, which targets this g3 pawn. And you can see that this position will be better for black. But in the actual game, here Tal decides to brings his queen to b4, which is a mistake. And the problem with this move is that now white can push f4. And as some of you might be like, here black can easily capture this c4 pawn, which actually happens in this game. But now white finds the best move, a3, attacking this queen. And obviously black cannot capture this b2 pawn due to this undefended knight, so that's why he simply brings his queen to c5, which is the only safe option. And now here black can go for this amazing move, which is g5, trying to create a breakthrough. And suppose if white takes on g5, instead of recapturing this pawn back, we can bring our knight to g4. And in the next move, you can see that black will exchange the bishops so that he can bring his queen to h2. And by this, black will be better. Okay, so in the actual game, after bishop f2, he missed this amazing move g5, and instead he goes for d5. And that's a mistake because now white can easily take on d5. And after all of these exchange, now look at this. Look at the position of white pieces. They are doing great. And now the best option for black is to go for this knight to g4, so that he can bring this queen to h2. But instead he decides to exchange the rooks, which is not a good idea. This is because now you can see that in the next move white can bring his rook to e5, which attacks this queen. Basically this rook exchange activates the white rook. And you can see white can also go for queen to b5, which attacks this weak b7 pawn. And by this, white will be better. And now in this position, Tal decides to bring his queen to g4. He wants to play knight to h5 with the idea of knight takes f4 check, which pins the king, which creates attack towards this king and this queen. So that's why after seeing this all, here white takes on d5, which also guards this f4 pawn. But after that, Tal, however, goes for this knight to h5, and you can see he is also targeting this g3 pawn. And yeah, so here to defend this, white can also go for this knight to e7 check, and suppose after king to h7, and obviously you can see white cannot capture this rook due to the threat of a knight takes f4 check. So that's why firstly here white has to take on h5. But what will happen if black just bring his rook to c3, which is supported by this bishop and which is attacking this queen? But now comes knight to g5 check, and obviously black cannot go to h8 due to the checkmate threat. So that's why the only move for black is to sack the queen. But after takes, rook takes d3, and after this rook to a5. And as you can see, no one can defend this a7 pawn, and white will be better. But after knight to h5, here Tal brings his knight to e5. Basically he want to attack this queen. A good move by white, attacking this a7 pawn while simultaneously defending this bishop on g1. And after g5, in this position here Josif finds a beautiful move. He decides to sacrifice his rook by rook to h8 check, and obviously you cannot capture this rook because now white will give a check by his queen. And after this king moves, queen takes f7 check. The only move is king to h8, and finally queen to g7 checkmate. So that's why after seeing this all, Tal brings his king further to g6. And after that, here Joseph gives a check again, and obviously you cannot push this g pawn to defend this check due to the threat of queen to f5 checkmate. And let's suppose what will happen if black brings his king to g6. Suppose if king to g6, now comes rook to g8 check, king to h7, and rook to g7 check, king to h8, and then white will bring his queen into the action, and after rook to d8, queen takes d8 check. The only move is queen to f8, but this is of no use due to this checkmate. So that's why after queen to f3 check, he defends this check by his queen, which is the only safest option. And now in this position, it's better for black to give a check to this king so that he can be in so that he can be sometime in the for this game. But here instead he made a final mistake by capturing this pawn on f6. This is because now you can see white will easily and happily capture this rook, and after king takes f6, now you can see uh, white will be a bishop up. But let's see how white converted this into the winning position. And in this position, the final move by Josif is bishop to h4, and in this position, Mikhail Tal resigned. But why? Let me show you a quick variation that why this position is winning for white. This is because suppose if black brings this king further to his pawns, simply king to d4, king to g6, king to e4, king to h6, king to f5, and now you can see that every next move made by black will be the worst move, and now we can say that black is in zugzwang, so that's why he has to go back. And after he go back, now we can bring our king to these pawns, and after king to g7, king takes h5, king to h7, bishop to f6, so that this king can't go there. And if king to g8, we will grab this pawn, and king to f7, king to f5, defending this bishop and simultaneously opening the path for this pawn. King to g8, g4, king to f7, g5, king to e8, g6, king to f8, g7 check, king to g8, and now you cannot go there because then this will be that will be a stalemate. So that's why you have to go there, so that this king can go there, and after that we will bring our king to this f7 square, and now you can see no one can stop this promotion. What an amazing game by Josif Zibler. Like this video and also make sure to subscribe to this channel. This is your host Bison signing off. Bye bye.